Welcome back to Kind Regards, the show. When I watched content a long time ago, when I would watch like YouTube videos or, too many movies or TV or whatever, I used to just think that the problem was like displacement, right? Like, oh, if I just cut out all of this screen time, think of all the books I could read, think of all the meditation I could do. This content is displacing useful stuff that I really like doing. But now I think of it differently. I think that the problem is way more pernicious and it actually kills something that's like crucial in all of our lives, which is our creative potential. Before you click away thinking, oh, I'm not a creative person, you are a creative person. Everybody's a creative person. We're all solving problems in our lives, thinking of unique contributions to make, whether it's at a staff meeting or whether it's making videos like this, or whether it's writing disparaging YouTube comments that are way funnier than the ones that we used to write. We're all doing creative stuff, right? And so what I'm talking about here applies both to artists creating visual art, writers writing YouTube comments, and also people who have to make PowerPoint presentations for work, right? So not only are we all sort of baseline creative, but we also deserve to make art, like meaningful art. Like if the PowerPoint doesn't feel meaningful to you, I think that we should all be creating like art that contributes to people's lives, right? And feels like a generous contribution. I've made heaps of videos about art, so check those out if you like that. But all right, what is the problem with too much content, right? What is the problem? How does it destroy creativity? There are 3 key ways that it destroys creativity. And they are the boredom problem, the inferiority problem, and the secret source problem. I'm going to run through them. I'm going to run through the solutions to them. And I'm also going to run through the ways that we then should moderate these things, like moderate the amount of content that we watch in order to have this sort of balance, because we're not going full monk mode at the end of this video. We're going to have some sort of balance in here. So we've got our 3 problems. These 3 problems are expounded upon by me in an article. So if you want to just go straight to the source and get the polished article, the link is below. But the first problem is the boredom problem. And this comes from a video by John Wayne, which is really sick. And he essentially talks about how as children we felt super creative, and now none of us feel creative. Why is that? Well, because as children we were bored. There was way less content in our lives. There was, 6 TV channels instead of infinite YouTube content. There was a handful of radio stations and CDs in our house that we'd listened to a million times instead of infinite music on Spotify, etc., etc. Now we are so easily stimulated that we're never just bored enough to have like random thoughts and also think those random thoughts compelling enough, and have the time and space in our lives to actually translate those into something worth looking at or listening to. So essentially John Wayne says we need to get bored, then we'll have ideas, right? Instead of being like depleted and then just wanting to watch something. You don't have ideas when you're watching stuff, right? You just don't. You have ideas when you're sitting still and quietly in a room. And so he challenges all of us to face the boredom problem by intentionally being bored, which hurts, by the way. It sounds like it's so cool and you'll have heaps of fun, creative ideas. But for the first little while, you will be in pain. But I think it's worth it because the alternative is just running on this content hamster wheel, being frivolously entertained by other people's thoughts and never actually creating anything of our own, missing out on one of life's quintessential joys, which is creative contribution. The second problem is the inferiority problem, which is that when I read Rebecca Solnit, for example, a beautiful essayist, she's so good, and historian, she's a million things, I feel like trash because she's like a part of the Sierra Club and goes hiking in beautiful mountains in America, and she's part of like anti-nuclear protesting and all these like cool scenes, and she lives in San Francisco and she studied in Paris. And so every essay she writes is like full of cool stories about like her meeting Hemingway's granddaughter and then like eating ecstasy or something. I made that up. I don't mean to slander Rebecca Solnit or Hemingway's granddaughter, but I feel like my life is not interesting, and I also feel she's such a beast at writing that I'm like, why would I ever even write? So consuming too much content does is the more YouTube you watch, the worse of a YouTube creator you will feel like, because so many of them are just beasts. We get around this twofold. One, by realizing that they all started at the start and we're watching them at the end, and that we're starting at the start. So if you went back and watched my first videos, you would be like, oh, this guy sucks. I mean, you might be watching this video and thinking that he sucks. And fair play to you, you know. But if you do that with all your favorite creators, the first videos will always suck, or even the first channels, most of which are deleted from a lot of creators, they'll all stink. And so your one will be just at that level, right? Like the first essay from Solnit is in a diary somewhere and it stinks, right? We can all get to that level. It just takes 15 years of trying, right? But in the meantime, we will still be able to make contributions to others. We'll still be able to make work that is worth paying attention to. We just need to get going on the thing. Also, we need to accept that our lives are interesting, right? We need to accept that the little struggles, the challenges that we face, our unique setbacks and triumphs speak to someone just like us out there in the world, right? I actually can't relate to studying in Paris, right? Solnit's cool, interesting life actually detracts from my experience of connecting with her. In contrast, when she talks in the universal, when she talks about stuff that we've all gone through, that's when I connect with her. And you have struggles, just as I have struggles, that if I illuminate them and explain them and talk about them and grapple with them in my art, that can help someone see more clearly their own lives and their own struggles. And so we all have a unique contribution to make. We all do. And that contribution is already good enough for someone. The less content that we watch, the more attention we'll be able to pay to our own lives. And the more we'll, be sitting at a bus stop instead of scrolling TikTok. We'll just be looking at people and we'll be, I don't know, making up backstories for them, or we'll be like wondering why, how does an antenna even work? I don't even understand that. And then we'll do some research, we'll find out interesting stuff, we'll want to share that knowledge with other people. It might inspire a short story that we want to write, whatever. We might be like, oh, I might do a series of paintings of antennas. They're so fun geometrically, and they're always up in the sky, so always beautiful cloudscapes behind them or whatever. You might have some glimpse of antennas and nature. That is a beautiful juxtaposition. And then all of a sudden you're cooking. You know what I mean? But less content is a critical piece in this sort of inferiority puzzle of paying enough attention to your life to find wisdom and sources of art in there, and also feeling like you're good enough of a creator to get going, even at the first step. The last problem is the secret sauce problem, which is essentially watching content in order to get good at making content. Don't make a YouTube video until you've watched this video about editing, or never record audio until you've bought this microphone. You have to read these 5 productivity books before you do anything. This is a trap. This is a trap, and it's a trap just to sell you content. Obviously, all productivity books describe themselves as indispensable. Of course they do. That's a part of the marketing. But we don't need them to make the work. It is just postponing our contribution. What we need to do is actually make the work. Stop watching content. Stop waiting for our passport to be a creative person. No one says you are a writer now because you watched this content or because you read this book. You become a writer by writing. You become a video maker by making videos. That's it. And you can do that right now today. You can do that in this instant. You can close this video before it's even done and start the creative thing. Just get paint and paint. Just use charcoal and go. Just, you have a pencil. You can be a sketch artist. You just have to do the thing. And stop waiting for permission, and stop waiting for this one thing that will make all the art easy. The reality of making art is that it is hard. Resistance is a part of the process, and we have to accept this and say, okay, this is gonna be hard sometimes, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Then, once we're actually making the art, once we're not delaying our art with all this secret sauce, maybe this will make it easy, maybe this will make it easy. We've accepted resistance, we're making the art. Then reading books like The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, can actually be really helpful. And the Stephen Pressfield book, The War of Art, these can be helpful and useful. The Practice by Seth Godin was great for me. So then we can go out and get them, and we're not delaying our creative practice. So once we've gotten rid of a bunch of this content, like I just sort of said, there is moderation here. Once we return to watching content, it can be inspiration for our own art, which I think is useful. But getting bored enough to make the art, saying goodbye to the secret sauce problem, and accepting that we might not be very good at it now, but the only way you get good at it is by sitting at the desk, getting bored, and making the work, actually making and shipping the work, sending it out there, getting feedback, and going again. This is how every beautiful piece of art ever got made. This is every genius that you know of. This is how they do it. There is a recipe for making meaningful art and making contributions to people's lives, and I've just told you what it is. And I reckon it's one of life's greatest joys. It's a beautiful thing for my self-esteem to be like, I make stuff for the world. I don't just consume the world, I actually produce for the world, and that a small group of people, you guys, enjoy that or find it useful. Occasionally I get comments that are like, yo, thanks very much. This was interesting. I'm so glad this got recommended by YouTube. That feels really nice. I'm glad to be here helping people out. And you can do that too. You can make work that transforms people in the way that those beautiful poems or that amazing artwork transformed you. You can do that. And if we can all do that, why hoard it? Why hoard our creative contribution? Because we're a bit afraid? Because we watch too much YouTube shorts? because we think that there's some secret key that once we, have this eureka moment, then we'll just run out and do it automatically? No, it takes work, and we got to get out there and have a crack. Otherwise, we will just continue to watch and yearn, which is the title of the essay. We'll just keep watching and longing for something bigger than just consuming frivolous content or consuming productivity content, which can be equally frivolous sometimes. And we'll miss out on one of life's greatest joys. Come on, folks, make some art. I just want everyone to make art. I want all my friends to make art. Make art and show it to me. All right, this has been Kind Regards, the show. Thanks very much for being here. I appreciate your time. Like I said, there's an essay about this exact thing if you want it, and there's a bunch of other essays on there on the Kind Regards Substack, so please check that out if you like that kind of thing. They're much more thorough than these are, and they're quite philosophically and psychologically and literary. So if you like that kind of thing, check that out. And there's also a YouTube and a Spotify link so you can get the content how you like it. It'd be great to hear from you. Take it easy. It's great to be back. Thanks very much. Rubber dog, as Blind Boy always says, rubber dog, and dog bless. Thanks. See ya. All right, let's go home.